Hello everyone, it's Dennie Heye here at the last day of the Online Information Conference in London. And today I'm joined by Phil Bradley, a well-known internet consultant in our industry. Welcome, Phil.
Thank you very much, nice to be here.
So today you had another packed session and you were talking about Google+. So what's your opinion so far of Google+?
Well, it's a little bit too early to say. I think with Google+, it's an interesting innovation. And it's one that as information professionals we need to consider because it's really showing us where Google is going in the future. And that is to say that Google is finally, I think, getting social media right. We saw Google Wave and Google Buzz fail miserably. But what Google is now doing is they are building search and social media together. So for example, if you're doing a normal search, you're going to start to see the +1 button much more often. Yep. You're going to be seeing businesses, Google Plus pages coming up. You're going to see much more integration of people's Google Plus profiles. So in normal search, you will see a lot more Google Plus content coming up. That in turn is going to make people think, well, what is this Google Plus thing? It's coming up everywhere. I need to be involved with it.
Yeah, what I also noticed is that when I'm logged into my Google account, and I've also got a Google Plus account, that if I type in something, and if someone in my, what Google calls circles, or like a group of people I know, it will show in the search results, so and so has +1 this. So that's probably their marriage of
that's right. Yeah,
improving the search results.
Yeah. Now the important thing to take into account here is that search has ceased to scale. Because of the amount of data that we've got flooding onto the net, search engines simply can't keep up with that amount of information. It's simply impossible for them to do so. If you think about the fact that every minute 48 hours worth of video goes up on something like YouTube, for example, there's no way that a search engine can deal with that.
No.
So what they're starting to do, and I've seen this from a number of different search engines, is they're moving much more towards the idea of social media search. They're really starting to introduce the idea that you get the information that you need and that you want from your trusted circles.
Yep.
So if you're looking at something like Bing, they've included a Facebook integration. If you're looking at Blacko as another search engine, they also give the option of adding in your Facebook friends and their particular likes. And now Google is doing exactly the same thing with the Google Plus resource. What we're seeing on the other side as well is that traditional companies that would previously have used their websites and their web pages to promote their products, things like Coke and Pepsi, they're now finding that they're getting more traction via their Facebook pages.
Okay.
Now
because it's more interactive?
It's because people are on Facebook.
Yeah.
If you're on Facebook, you stay on Facebook, and you're going to think, oh, I wonder if Pepsi's got a page or whatever. And what you're also seeing in advertising now is that large companies, corporates, people promoting movies, for example, they're no longer putting in a link to their website. They're putting in a link to Facebook and their page on Facebook. Now, this is clearly a concern as far as Google is concerned, because you're then not staying in the Google environment, you're not using Google to search, and you're not clicking on the ads. If you're staying in Facebook, that's exactly what's happening. So this is Google's attempt to get some of the traction back. And they're trying to make sure that all of the different Google products, your Gmail account, your calendar, Google Documents, your photographs, Google RSS reader, is all going to be incorporated into Google Plus in the future. And you're also seeing, if you're in your Google account and you do your search and you see somebody's Google Plus page, you can at that instant add it to a particular circle that you want. So it's becoming intrinsic into everything that Google is doing. Consequently, and rather distressingly, what Google is doing at the same time is throwing away a lot of search functionality. This time last year, you could do so much more with Google Search. They had the Google Wonder Wheel, they had the timeline, for example. There was some of the advanced search functionality that you could use.
That's true. I noticed that. I was looking for the advanced search a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah,
and I had to Google it.
Absolutely. I've heard several people say this. Google don't want you to search. Google is not interested in encouraging people to do intelligent, interesting searching, because you're then leaving the Google environment and you're going off to where you want to go. So I've got a certain amount of sympathy with Google, because if Google is good at what it does, i.e. finding you good quality stuff, you leave the Google environment and you don't see the adverts any longer. So if they can keep you a little bit longer within that Google Plus environment,
they're making money.
They're going to make money. So you've always got to look at the bottom line for Google is, how are they going to make money? It's worthwhile reiterating over and over again, Google is not a search company. And at the risk of repetition, Google is not a search company. Google is a company that is an advertising company, and they use search as their way of making money. So you've got to look at everything that Google does in that light. And they don't make money from people doing good quality searching and then leaving. They make money from people staying on Google for as long as they possibly can do.
Okay, are we then heading towards more silos? Because in the past you had like CompuServe, and if you weren't CompuServe, you stay in CompuServe, you use their email. You had AOL, but it was all walled gardens. Then we had the open internet for a while, and now it seems like Facebook is building their silo. They don't want you to leave. Google built their semi-closed silo.
Yes.
They don't want you to leave. Is that where we're heading?
Absolutely. And what we're also the other thing that's worthwhile taking into account there is the role that Apple's got, because you're also in the silo of using an app. And I get a lot of my data now without going to Google, without looking at Facebook. I'll use my iPhone and an app that gets me the data it is that I need. So what we're seeing through all of these different things is a fatal weakening of the value and the importance of the traditional website, and consequently traditional web searching. We're moving into an entirely different phase. Now, for the information professional, that's got a number of implications. We have to start looking at search differently. We have to have access to social media resources, because if people are putting their data on Facebook, we have to have access to Facebook, and it's unacceptable for a company to say you can't use Facebook because they don't understand the value and the importance of information within a Facebook or a Google Plus environment. So we need to be able to promote that to the companies, the organizations within which we work.
It's almost like, back in the day you needed access to either Datastar or Dialog or what have you, because that type of information was in that database. If you didn't have the database, you can get the information. Now it's like, it should be in Facebook.
You're absolutely right. The second element that as professionals we need to take into account is that if these resources are starting to look at individuals as being weather vanes as to where people should be going for data, we need to position ourselves as trusted authorities. Because I am increasingly using apps and news curation services that give me data based on what my contacts, and I'm not going to use the term phrase, what my contacts will be liking and plus oneing on Facebook, what they add to their social bookmarking resources, for example, because that's what's important for me now. I will be looking at search in that respect. If somebody recommends something or plus ones it, I am much more likely now to go and look at those resources than the fact that Google says, okay, this is the top 1 to 5. Because Google really doesn't care that much. My contacts do care, and they are the ones that can guide me. Now, we have to ensure that we are in those places as quickly as possible. We need to be able to build up our own contacts, to get people adding us to their circles or to their Facebook groups and so on, so that when this switch comes, and it's going to come sooner rather than later, we are in that position and people are going to be able to see what it is that we are doing. We also need to be there because we need to be able to advise the people that we work for that social media and a different way of using the net is the way forward. It's very tempting to just think, oh, Google Plus, I can leave it for a few months, or I can leave it till this time next year, or whatever it happens to be. And while that's tempting, it's a fatal mistake to make, in my opinion, because what I'm going to be interested in, if I needed a plumber, I'm going to be much more keen on using a plumber that says, well, there's the traditional method, but there's this really new, interesting way of working. Partly because I might want to do that, but partly because it's saying to me, this plumber is professional, they know what they're doing, they're looking at the innovations in their industry, they're in a really good position to advise me.
Yep.
We need to be those people. We need to be able to say, there's this resource, have you thought about using it, have you thought about using the other? And the difference is the advantages and disadvantages of one social media resource over another. The only way that we're going to get that knowledge is if we spend time there. We have to play with those resources. Yeah. In order to empower other people, we have to be empowered ourselves, and we have to kind of bootstrap ourselves to do that by spending time there, by playing around and exploring those resources. Because if we don't, somebody else will do it, and we will lose out on the conversations.
Yeah, and I think we always look back on when first electronic databases came along. We were the first profession to jump on that.
Yes.
What if we had said, well, it's just a hype.
Exactly.
Car catalogs are good enough, paper journals are good enough.
Yeah.
And the way I see it is that social media is now a new platform next to shows, connecting people to people to experts, and people to information.
Absolutely.
And if we consider that to be our job, then we have to be there, whether we we like it or not.
Yes, I mean what our stock in trade is communication.
Yeah.
What social media resources do is to allow us to communicate to wider, different audiences in different and new and innovative ways. We have to grasp that, because if we don't, those conversations will still take place. It's just that we are then not involved with them. And it's vitally important that senior and middle management, who may have an intrinsic distrust of social media because they don't use it, they don't understand it, they just see what they see from the mass media. They don't understand the value of it. We need to be the people in the organisation that says you need to be using these resources.
Okay, I think with those final wise words, I think I want to close off this interview. If people want to find out more about you, where can they go?
Well, they can go to my website, which is philb.com. They can follow me on Google+. They can follow me on Facebook. They can follow me on Twitter at Phil Bradley. They can go to my NetVibes page, which is netvibes.com/Phil Bradley.
There's no escaping.
There is no escape, no. And the worst comes to the worst, do a search for me on your favourite search engine, which may or may not be Google, and do a search for Phil Bradley, and you should find me fairly quickly.
Or any conference in this industry, there's Phil Bradley.
Pretty much, I will be there, yes.
Okay, Phil, I really want to thank you for giving us advice, and to all of you out there, until the next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.